Okay, these are some of the materials that I got that inspired me to make this necklace. The very first things that I got, I went to Hobby Lobby and I saw these, and anytime I see a little metal piece, I think of a book, because that's how I usually make my books, is with little metal pieces. So I saw those, and then I got some matching chain, and it's not long enough, so I'm actually going to take it apart and put some links in between it with beads. I had originally intended on using clear beads or crystal beads in between it to make a really monotone gold and clear sparkly necklace, but I've been looking at this right here, and I went to Walmart and got these beads, and I thought, well, those just really look good together. So I didn't want to cut this painting up, and I didn't want to scan it in and use it. I like the texture of it. So I did another one. I actually did two more of them. The other one's cut up already. So this is the one that I did, and I'll actually scan both of these images right here together or take some pictures of them and make a JPEG for you guys, and I'll link it in the description below. It'll be in a Google Drive file. That way you guys will be able to print out your own and put it in a book if you want to make one. So I got these little metal pieces, and I added some patina with vintage patina, and you can use any color that you like. I used the teal color, the turquoise teal color that I have. And then I have these pieces of fabric. They're sandpaper that I use from a metal clay. And I just, once I got a thick amount of patina on them, I just rubbed them until I got it to where I wanted it to be and exposed enough of the material. I selected some vintage book papers, some scrapbook paper. I've got some vellum here. And what I did was I took my little metal piece and I traced it on a piece of paper, and I cut it out just a little bit smaller than the metal piece, and I made a little template, and I've cut out pieces of paper here, and I've stacked them all up together to make my little book. So these pieces of polka dotted paper are going to be glued on the inside, kind of like a fly leaf, and the rest of the pages are in there like a little book. I think I may end up cutting a few pieces of white mixed media paper to go in it. I'm not sure. I'm going to use my heavy duty hole punch and punch 2 holes on the top. It's the Rubber Whitney Punch number 5 Junior. And I'm going to do that off camera because it's just incredibly hard to get it focused on camera. But what I'll do is I'll take my template, I'll fold it in half, and I'll mark a place on that template to punch the hole. Then I'll punch the hole and mark it on each page and on my covers as well. I didn't have to punch every single individual piece. I punched several of them at a time, and I just lined this template on top of them and punched them. And once they were all done, stack them all together. And I did add the white paper in there, so I do have quite a chunk of papers here. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some wire and run it through and make a big loop and solder it. So I'm going to make 2 big loops at the very top of it to join the book together. I was going to use some 18 or 20 gauge wire to create some links for this, or some loops for this, but I've decided to use this 14 gauge wire. It's really thick and it's very pretty. I've made these 2 rings, and they're very close in size together. They're very rough, and that's how I want them. And I'm going to thread them onto this a little bit at a time. And once I get that one side on, I'm going to put the other side on. I've made a couple of loops here to bind my book together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little piece of solder in between each one of these little places. And I'm going to just heat set it with a lighter. I'm not going to bother with a soldering iron. I've done this before, and I'm just going to heat set it with a lighter. Okay, I do this a couple of different ways. Sometimes if the solder is thick enough, I pinch a chunk of it and place it in between this. I make sure that both of these edges are very flush
before I connect them, and I wedge a piece of solder in between it. But this solder is very fine, and so I've made a ring of solder to go around. I made like a little loop of solder and just put it around that. It might be kind of hard to see there, but so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat it up with a lighter until it runs and makes that connection.
Make sure not to burn your pages here. There we go.
You can see that little bead right there that connected that gap. And now it's very hot, so don't touch it. Clean it off with a wet paper towel or a paper towel with alcohol on it once it cools down.
At this point, if I were done with this, I would connect, I've split my chain in half right here, and I would just connect these
onto that and be done with it. But this is an 18-inch chain, and I'd like to make this closer to 24 inches, so I'm gonna break this up and include some bead links in between it. That way it'll make it a little bit longer and add some color to it as well. So I'm creating my links now, and what I'm going to do is I've flush cut the edge of this. I'm going to slide a bead on, and then I'm just going to make a simple loop. Alright, once I've made that loop, I'm going to kick that back and make that straight and push that up against it. And then what I normally do, I use my pinky as a size gauge, and I flush cut right up against my pinky. Okay. Once that's done, there goes my other bead. I rock this other one back just a little bit and loop it in. There you go. Cute little loop right there. I am using 20 gauge dead soft wire for this. Normally I prefer using 18 gauge because it's a little bit thicker, but it also makes me tired if I do several loops in a row. It makes my wrist very tired. So I'm going to do several of these and link them together and show you how I'm going to put them on the chain. Okay, I've got 3 of these together, and this is how I'm going to put them together in a group of 3. So the way I do this is I'm going to open this up. And see, I've got that open there. I'm going to slide this one into that. So that's making a little basic link right there. Put that back. Okay. Then I'm going to go to this one. And I'm going to open that one up as well. And slide this one onto that one. And there you go. Now you can link these together all day long and make a nice sturdy chain, or you just make a few of them together as accent pieces. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to take 2 pairs of pliers here, and I'm going to take one link off my chain. I'm going to connect it to my book. Close it back up securely. Okay. And I'm going to open this back up. And slip it through that. Close it up. So that's how that's going to look right there. I'm going to do one on each side, and then I'm going to make several of these to put into the chain. Okay, I'm just reattaching this chain back onto both sides of this. So that would be cute enough as it is, but I am going to split apart here and probably one more time up at the top. I have them kind of laid out like I want them. I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and split this. And put this on it. There we go. And then I'm going to count 8 more. And I'm going to do the same thing right here as well. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. The chain is done. And I really like the way that it's turned out so far. One thing that I do want to do is include a little focal element on the front made out of Sculpey clay. I want to do a heart. And I'm going to do some paper wings to go with it. So we'll work on that next. Now that I have the book and the chain done on this book necklace, I want to add something to the cover. I like these beads right here, so I want to add something that's kind of that color. It's a navy sparkly bead, and I'm going to try to get that same look by using some black Sculpey and some Pearl X Duo Blue Green. I love Pearl X on top of dark Sculpey colors. It just gives it the most beautiful shimmer. I'll also be adding some wings to the heart with this piece of paper here. I'm just going to do them very whimsical and very simple. But I'm going to use an embossing pad to add glitter and UTEE to them. And hopefully add some of these little micro beads as well. So I have my clay out and I'm going to condition it. Just warm it up with my hands and work it out a little bit so it's easier to sculpt. Once that's done, I'm going to form a ball. I think I'm also going to use this. It's a Staedtler V gauge. It's made for stamp carving, but I like to add kind of like a zebra-like texture. Just scooping it out like that, doing it all over the place. So I might do something like that with the heart once I get it sculpted. And the reason I want to do that is because when I put the Pearl X on it, I'll just put the Pearl X on the surface, so that'll be blue, and these right here will stay black. Probably just to make sure I don't get any inside this, I'll put the Pearl X on first and then carve away at it. That way the lines are a lot cleaner. Okay, I decided to get a few more tools out just in case I need them. This is a silicone tipped taper point color shaper. I use it a lot to shape the clay. It's better than my fingertips because it leaves really smooth surface area. And then I may use this all. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit and make a point. Okay.
I've got my point of my heart. I'm going to push in. And spread this open. And use my shaper tool to finish the shape of the heart. So once I have that done, I'm just going to kind of fix the surface of that where I had to add some little lumps in it. Sometimes my fingers do work better. That's a little too big. Yeah, I kind of like that shape. Test it again. Yep, I think that should be good. Good size anyway. I'm going to keep bringing this in a little bit. Double check it again. Yeah, that's a good size. Alright, so I'm going to add the Pearl-Ex, and I'm just going to do it with my finger. Just picked up a bit. A bit too much. That's got a really good shimmer to it. A really good metallic looking texture. You have to be careful with Pearl-Ex. The particles are so fine that they can hurt your lungs if you breathe too much of them in. So if you are going to be kicking it up all over the place, you need to wear a mask. There we go. So this is really soft in my hand, but I work with Sculpey a lot, so I'm used to it. But if you find that doing something detailed like this is harder when you're first learning how to use it, or sometimes it's just hard for people because their hands get too warm, you can stick it in the freezer for a few minutes, and then it's harder and easier to work with. It doesn't warm up as fast. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm going to finish this up real quick. Okay, so that's finished now. I'm going to put it in my oven at 275 for about 15 minutes. Okay, so I thought I would be using this paper. It's a craft paper with a pink print on it. I just thought it'd look really good with the chain and everything. But when I added my UTEE and stuff to it, you can see it turned very, very dark, and it doesn't look right. So what I ended up doing was using this polka dotted paper. I like it, but I'm going to keep the beads on the tip of it. The way that I've done this is I've cut out a little extra right here at the edge of it, so I'll be able to hold it with my pliers while I dip it in the UTEE and I heat it up. And then that way I can just cut across it when I'm done. So that was just my test piece. I've done the same thing with these two pieces right here. And pretty much what I'm doing is I'm getting my embossing ink pad, saturating it as well as I can. And then I've got a little tray right here with UTEE in it, and I'm just dipping it into that tray. And it's not going to have a lot at first, but so pretty much I'm doing several layers at a time with my heat gun, and I'm heating from the bottom to start with, because if not, it's going to kick all that embossing powder off. And it's not really fine like clear embossing powder is. It's really grainy. It's almost like the size of salt grains, so it flies off a lot faster than embossing powder does. So I'm making sure that I heat my embossing tool up very well. I won't be able to do that on camera because it's too close to my lens. So I'm going to heat it up for you, and I'm going to show you what it looks like after the first coat and the second coat, and after what it looks like after all my coats. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but it doesn't cover it all the first time. And then so I just add another coat of the embossing ink and just add another layer to it, and eventually you get enough on there to where it creates a nice thick surface. And once that surface is created, I sprinkle the glitter in it while it's still hot. Then I heat it up again, and then I stick it in, I'll stick it in the micro beads, just the very tip while it's still hot, and then I'll heat it again to set the micro beads in it. Okay, the second coat is a lot more even, but there's a couple of places, mostly around the edges, that don't get covered, but I've got a couple of places in the middle too that needs another coat of the embossing stamp pad. And at this stage you can kind of pile some of it on too. I've got a pretty good layer of it. I'm just scooping it. I like to have a really thick coat of the UTEE. Okay, now I have a very nice even coat on it. I might add just a little bit more. I'll go with 4 layers on this one. Okay, so I heated it up one more time, and while it was still hot, I sprinkled my glitter in, and you can tell right here it's starting to yellow a little bit, which I don't mind. But if you want a nice clear coat without any yellow to it, just be careful how much you heat it up. That time I heated from the top to set the glitter in, and while it was still hot, I picked up some of the little beads, the micro beads. I have the beads poured out into one of these measuring cups, and I just dipped it in like that while it was still hot. I'm going to heat it up one more time to set those beads in a little bit further, because they'll still pop off right now. Alright, now they're set in very well. This time I heated from the bottom for a little while and got the UTEE flowing, and then after that I heated from the top. It's got a little dimension to it, but not a whole lot. And it's very shiny. I'm going to do the other wing and trim them down. Okay, I have my wings done and my heart is ready. So I'm going to glue them down with some E6000 and show you guys some finished pictures of it. If you are not familiar with E6000 and you're wanting to give it a try, it's very good glue. It sticks really well to metal, polymer clay, paper, all different kinds of things, and I use it a lot of times to make jewelry, like if I'm going to set a cabochon or a piece of polymer clay or something like that. It has a very good hold because it still stays a little bit flexible, so it's not going to completely break off. But if you use E6000, use it outside, it releases carcinogens as it cures. Once it's cured, it no longer releases carcinogens, so it's good after the 48 hours. But I recommend using the product outside and leaving your project somewhere safe outside where it's not going to get wet for 48 hours at least before you bring it in your house, or you're going to smell fumes.